Welcome to the Customer Success Leadership Roundtable, everybody. I'm Andrew Marks, the co-founder and chief customer officer of Success Hacker and the chief product officer for the Success Coaching Training Program. Thrilled to be leading this discussion on enhancing your team's capabilities through skill development. This free learning event is brought to you by Success Coaching, where we've empowered over 36,000 students from nearly 100 countries with our globally acclaimed customer team-focused professional development programs. Whether it's a self-paced online learning or dynamic virtual boot camps, we've got a program that suits your team's unique needs. Regardless of the role, customer success, customer support, or customer service, having a mindset focused on helping your customers achieve a return on their investment with your organization is paramount. You can find all the details of our offerings on our website, successcoaching.co, or in the chat, where Ashley will provide links and any coupon codes that we're offering. For newcomers, this is where real world advice meets practicality. We invite industry experts to share their experiences, ensuring our discussions remain grounded in the everyday challenges of customer success. Regardless of the company that you work for, the scope of your role, or the size of the customers your teams deal with, we aim to pick topics that are going to be practical and useful to you. Now, a few housekeeping items before we get going. This webinar is recorded and we'll be posting a replay and transcript on our website early next week. We encourage active participation, so please feel free to ask your questions using that Q&A button located at the bottom of your Zoom interface. Now, questions with higher upvotes will receive priority during the Q&A session. And for our LinkedIn Live audience, which I believe we just got connected, yes, Ashley?
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry about that delay. We had a little bit of a technical problem with LinkedIn Live. But for our LinkedIn Live audience, you can also post your questions directly and they will be relayed to us. Thank you, Santana. To maintain a smooth discussion, please use the chat window exclusively for commentary while directing your questions to the Q&A window. Thank you for your engagement. In the world of customer success, you'll find plenty of smart ideas and theories, but in this series, we're all about getting real. We're here to talk practical advice, tried and true tricks, and stories from folks who live and breathe customer success every day. That's why I'm thrilled to have these three outstanding panelists with us today. These are people who really know their stuff, and we can't wait to hear what they've got to say. So without any more delay, let's kick things off by having our panelists introduce themselves to y'all and tell us a bit about who they are and what they do. And let's get started as usual in alphabetical order with Jeff.
All right. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, and potentially good evening out there to everyone joining us from Jordan and Germany and all the other countries online with us across waters. I'm excited to be here and join you, Andrew, Shivi, and Peter, to discuss this topic because it's a timely discussion. It's one that I hear a lot of CS leaders and, to be frank, CSMs that they face on a regular basis. For myself, I'm currently leading customer success teams at Box, but I've led CS support and account management programs at Stack Overflow as it went from its Series D to Series E stage. I joined Dropbox pre-IPO and led CS teams through and beyond the IPO. I was at WeWork exactly during the time when it wasn't working. And ultimately, through all the drama that HBO and Netflix loved. So I've seen a few different experiences and companies over my career. There are more behind that, but I've enjoyed leading customer success teams across the globe. I often also advise for late stage companies on how to evolve their CS programs. And then outside of CS, I'm an elected council person in Jersey City. So I saw my Jersey folks joining here. I sit on the economic development board for the city, and I have a not CS related podcast called Sips of Success, even though I did bring Nick Maida on an episode, but you can find that anywhere you consume your shows. And lastly, I have a lovely little terror of a 2-year-old that I'm solo parenting at the moment. So times are fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and you disappeared there for a bit while you were handling your new bundle of joy, which is a great reason to disappear.
Yeah. I actually did a conference recently, and somebody asked me, they're like, "Where have you been? You used to be I see you everywhere." It's like, has it been about 2 years? Because I can tell you exactly where I've been.
Yeah. Kids do that to you.
Yeah.
Kids do that to you. And I think you and I originally met when you were at WeWork. Wasn't it Melinda who introduced us? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then through the and then you were a customer of ours when you were at
Yep.
Stack Overflow.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that was
It's,
awesome.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Sweet. Great to have you, Jeff.
Indeed. Thank you.
Next up, Peter, another person I've known for quite a while.
Quite a long time, but I feel I got the short end of the stick by going after Jeff with interesting stories. Yeah, hi everybody. Really happy to be on this webinar. I think my third appearance, maybe, Andrew?
Yeah, something like that, third or fourth. Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I love the audience. I love the community that coaching has created and nurtured over the years. And so, big supporter of Andrew and team and the work they do. In previous lives, I have had teams go through the training and get certified, and it's always been really positive experience and good outcomes. Just kind of quickly, I've been in customer success roles, various roles, individual contributor, architecture roles, leadership, executive leadership for about 16 years, a variety of companies. But pertinent to this conversation, I think I just want to highlight, I spent 6.5 years at Oracle. And for about 3 or 4 of those, I was responsible for building, managing the team and implementing an entirely new enablement platform for customer success, which was a big endeavor. And so I have a healthy respect for training and development. And in particular, in this juncture we're at with customer success and the needs of the industry is changing and the roles are changing and technology is coming at us really fast, I think this topic is very, very timely. And so I'm thrilled to be on this webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, and you and I met when you were at Oracle working for
Catherine.
Yes. Catherine Black.
Yeah.
Yes. Another OG
Yes.
of customer success. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And last but not least, our final guest and also a veteran of the program, Shivi.
Hey, Andrew. Hello, Peter, Jeff. Thank you for having me here today. Again, very excited to be here. I'm Shivi. I'm working as a customer success relationship manager with ADP. Probably people know about ADP, which is a human resources management software and service provider. I come from a background of human resources, and I'm a certified training and development specialist. So again, this topic is extremely close to my heart because I can now talk more from the skill development and also from the CS world. So when I transition into the CS world, Andrew, you know how helpful you have been, and with the great content that you have provided out there with the success coaching is amazing. So great job out there. And again, with my book of business, I have a blend of both public and private sector companies. So great to be here and happy to talk about the topic.
Awesome. And let's and once again, thank you, Shivi, and thanks everybody for being here today. Let's jump to the topic. I think people are anxious to get this thing going. So let's be honest. Most of our L&D strategies are stuck in 2019, teaching skills for a world that no longer exists. While AI transformation and customer centricity are at the forefront of our conversations, our training approaches still lag in pre-AI high growth mindset where cash burn was acceptable. Core fundamentals like empathy, relationship management, active listening, proactive communication, customer centricity, and value delivery all remain essential for customer success, but today's landscape demands we go further, equipping our teams with new skills to stay relevant in a rapidly evolving market. If we aren't constantly rethinking and evolving our approach to skill development, we risk creating teams that are obsolete before they even complete their training. So to get the conversation started, let's start with the foundations. How are you currently identifying the gap between your team's existing capabilities and the skills they need in the next 12 to 18 months, particularly with AI reshaping customer interactions?
Yeah. If you don't mind me just jumping in and answering first here, Andrew, because I have a lot of thoughts on this. And, I think you're right that even if some people think that it's like a hot take that you might be, potentially making your teams obsolete. If we think about what's happened over the past few years, during the pandemic, the SaaS industry underwent significant changes. new technologies emerged, customer needs shifted to support remote work. Companies faced broader ranges of tools and allowed employees to basically choose whatever worked best for them. And that resulted in a sprawl in their tech stack. And because of that, companies' technology decision-making processes also changed. And the effect of this on CSMs was that during this time, they needed to be able to manage more competitive conversations. Like they need to know why their tool was different, why it was better or more valuable than the next. Then soon after that, CSMs were not only competing against a wide set of tools with their customers, they themselves were using a wider set of tools. So CS platforms accelerated the product development. AI platforms became widely available, and automation became a part of how they did their work. But I think this led to a loss of certain skills that were made to become part of the automated process. Business acumen to know what's happening with your customers got replaced with automated tools that would feed that information, and they didn't have to go search and sleuth. Strategic thinking around understanding and acting on signals of adoption health or articulating vision to a customer based on their hidden needs were then baked into platforms, and they relied on that single place. Now, fast forward to today, and companies are now reversing that sprawl and consolidating their tech stack and reducing spending on tools. And this puts CSM's vision setting and acumen to the test. And automation can't sell that story. And maybe that's a hot take in itself, but there's a popular phrase that goes, yesterday's price is not today's price. And well, yesterday's CSM is not today's CSM. And skill development has to be an aware balance of the tools, the hard skills, and the soft skills to keep CSMs dangerous enough to meet the challenges that they face. That's my thought on that.
I love it, Chef. I'm gonna jump in here, and I love that quote. I'm just gonna take a note of it. Today's CSMs is not today's CSM, and I know we all want to talk about the AI and what's happening in this world right now with the change in the tech stack. But I also believe that most of our senior CSMs are millennials. And we all do need trainings when it comes to the AI transformation that's happening out there, the skill training that's happening. But I do want to talk about that no matter how much technology we talk about, the AI, we cannot replace the unique potential of human interaction out there. And therefore, upskilling is required and may be needed, and especially in the areas with AI literacy or with the CSMs, because we are churning the data. So maybe data interpretation or anything new digital touch points that's needed out there, especially with the chatbots out there, so that we can connect with our clients and manage the communications effectively. That's going to be my take on that.
Did any of you see the post that Jay Nathan put on LinkedIn a couple of days ago talking about AI and customer success? There's something that really stuck with me, and I'm gonna pull it up here and read it. He says, which is very relevant to our discussion. Agents and chatbots will directly impact customer support, but many customer success motions, so things like account management, services, adoption, rely on relationships, especially with high-end commercial and enterprise accounts. Relationships are built on trust. That is not something that AI can do. What AI can do is, if we use it correctly, we can make ourselves more efficient and allow us more of that headspace to figure out what we should be doing and how we should be driving value and building that trust with our customer. I look at the AI tools and the AI skills out there as being something to enable better customer success, not replace customer success.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think when I think about AI and customer success, for years, customer success has been trying really hard to establish a basis of trust with customers in the market, and we're rightly proud of where that exists. But AI is a double-edged sword. It, as you just said, Andrew, it can offer opportunities for efficiencies and optimization and really collaboration with you. But there's the issue of credibility that could get eroded if it produces inaccuracies. And so you need to be really careful. At this stage of AI, I'm a big AI proponent, and I use it every day. But I also caution, I put a post out yesterday about that you need to be really careful to check its work. And so because if you don't, your customers are going to feel it. And I want to make one more point about this skills question. I think it's important for leaders, CS leaders, to make sure someone is checking with customers about what their expectations are of the service that's being delivered and the quality and knowledge of the people delivering it periodically. You don't want to be flying blind into this really wild future without checking with the customers.
Yeah.
I think you spoke to one half of the concern that I have with AI there, Peter. You talked about that we have to check the work that comes out of AI. There's also the work of knowing how to use AI and create the right input so that you're asking the right questions so that you get the best possible option to get the right output. And I think that some people are undervaluing the use of different types of AI models and platforms and how to be able to ask and prompt and create those right generated questions so that you're getting something out of it that you intend to. And if you ask the wrong platform for the wrong question, you're going to probably trust something that's actually going to take you off track.
Correct. Yeah.
Prompt engineering is very important. It's something I use AI every day myself. Prompt engineering is very important. One wrong, poorly written prompt can really screw up your results. And but to your point, Peter, no matter what AI is, it's like having somebody sitting next to you to bounce ideas off of. It doesn't replace you. And you need to your point, you need to question everything. Hey, does that make sense? Does this sound right? It's definitely an efficiency play for sure, but it's not a replacement.
100%. Yeah.
So building on that kind of skills assessment, what specific changes have you made to your training programs to address this shift from growth at all costs to financial fundamentals, right? And how are you teaching teams to balance customer advocacy with fiscal responsibility?
Do you want that?
I'll take it. Sure. Yeah. So what we've done in a previous job, but also this one, is make sure that the team is has training in front of them or made available to them for understanding business acumen and the financial metrics associated with customer success. We should know what those things are. There's tons of acronyms. I don't want to go into them, but I think they're easily found. But it's important to understand which ones are most important to your CFO, because they're the ones who are in charge of investing in the organization. And so it's a hot topic these days. How does customer success prove its validity to the business? And that's why it's so critical for everyone in customer success to understand the financial metrics. And really, as Jeff, you mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation around business acumen, it's even more vital now to be highly skilled around that with respect to your customers. And I think just to talk about the second piece, the customer advocacy, we like to have like scenarios created. So how would a win-win look for your customer and for the company? And so you play that out, and you have the individual kind of participate in creating the kind of scenario that would ideally work for both sides. Work meaning that successful outcomes are produced for the customer, while at the same time there's a margin that's met on our side, and ideally profit is paid attention to. And so it's important for everyone in the company nowadays, and CSMs who are at the front line, to understand that balance needs to be met.
I love that, Peter. I love the piece when you talked about the financial and the business acumen. And that's something that we are currently doing at our work, to make sure that the CSMs understands that how important their work impacts to the bottom line, especially the mindsets and the growth. And we are trying to understand the data-driven decisions that's helping and making the training much more useful and impactful. And especially because at the CSMs, we understand what the KPIs are and how do we measure those KPIs, understanding the tech and the financial aspects out there, including the account profitability and the customer lifetime cycle. So I think with a blend of all those stuffs, we would be able to identify which are the more targeted training programs that our team need at this point.
Yeah, I like that you brought up lifetime value because that's more of a long play, but it's super critical these days. And I think customer success needs to pay closer attention to that. I am glad you brought that up.
And customer success needs to pay more attention to that. That need to be focused on that. That's the whole point. The whole point of our job is to increase customer lifetime value. And I've talked to leaders before that don't want to own a number. Yeah, you do. You want to own that number, right? Because that number directly affects the bottom line of the organization, right? When you can walk into your boardroom and talk in front of the exec staff and the board and say, the actions that my team is taking is contributing to an increase in customer lifetime value of X. That's revenue into the company, and that's efficient revenue. That's revenue from existing customers. We don't have to go out and find those customers. We're growing through our existing customer base.
Yeah. I even actually, so people come to me all the time and they tell me that they're looking for CS roles. I see we have some questions about CS roles and people transitioning into the market and how to be able to tell when a CS org is supported. And in your question, Andrew, you mentioned growth at all costs. I think that it's still a sense of urgency and intent to anchor on growth within CS, but instead of at all costs, I think there's a healthy sense of growth at best costs. So part of this is not only like the investment in that companies are putting into their customer success and when their actual customers and the success of those customers, but also the fact that from what I'm seeing, more companies are putting more of a pronounced investment in their CS org and tying a number next to their outcomes, which means they're part of that revenue effort and those results. And so I tell people if they're looking for a CS role, ask if the CS role has a number tied next to it. And if it doesn't, then it's like the owner of the Dallas Cowboys saying they're all in. It's not really reality unless they put the money next to it. It's not a real thing. So yes.
Not Jerry Jones. It's not a real thing. Whenever he opens his mouth. Hopefully there's not a whole lot of Dallas fans in the audience. And then I want to touch on one other thing, Peter, that you mentioned, and we kind of glossed over it, but I think this is important when we're talking about changes made to your training programs. Is something actually we're introducing in our new refresh of our content. Scenarios, right? Having scenarios, having things like role plays, having we've even gone to the as far as creating challenges for learners to actually apply what they're learning in their personal life, right? All of those things help. They help in helping people grok what they're learning.
And that's where AI is extremely proficient, frankly, creating the scenarios. And you just ask it to adopt a particular persona. Adopt a persona of an executive who's expert in this specific business area, and have it present a challenge and have your teammate tackle that. So
exactly. We've built some scenarios that way ourselves. So it definitely is a great way to do that. Just a reminder, any questions, please use the Q&A functionality and upvote any questions that you see in there that you'd like to get an answer on, and we'll get to those in about 15 minutes. So we've talked a bit about assessment and program adoption. Now, how are you incorporating, and we touched on a few of these things, how are you incorporating AI tools and automation, digital CS into your training programs? Not just as subjects to learn about, but as enablers of the training. So that, Peter, you brought up a great point, scenario creation. Any other things that you have done internally with AI or digital CS or any other tools that you have used that have helped drive your education, your L&D strategies?
Yeah, I would just say we're just experimenting with it, but using AI to tie the training to make it personalized based on the performance history of the individual. So I think we're really optimistic about that to make the training more exciting and interesting for the individual while it is directly aligned with where we need them to go as a company. But I think AI will help us really hone in on the best kind of training for them.
Jeff, Shivi, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I
I
love
agree.
that one with the training piece. What something that we would be doing is using the chatbot, something on demand learning support kind of a thing. So it's more about understanding and accessing what CSMs are going through as a complex process, offering a quick refresher sessions, analyzing the participation rates as what Peter told about, understanding what the completion times would be, assessing the assessment scores, and having those kind of an understanding so that both the life of the CSMs gets easy and we are also using the technology to get the data-driven decisions.
Hmm. I agree with both. I mean, customization and tailored experiences are what AI is all about. If you're able to use that where individual CSMs are understanding the places where they can improve and where they can elevate their skills, then you're maximizing the use of the tool and the most efficient way for CSMs to really evolve.
Yeah, and let's not forget that there's already technology that provides meeting summaries and all that. AI is involved doing that, and there's ways to have AI consume that and provide suggestions for where the people can find improvement that are aligned with where you need them to go. So I'm very excited about how AI can assist us here.
Yeah, we use update.ai. Great tool
Right.
Mhm.
for all of our meetings, and a nice summary, action items, key takeaways.
Yeah, I see all this, Andrew, as a leadership challenge or an opportunity. Leaders can use those reports and output from like Update AI
Yeah.
and figure out how they want to grow the team, and develop better strategies.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
To that point, Peter, I think that in certain companies they might view it as a challenge versus viewing it as an opportunity,
Correct.
and are missing out on the chance for that. It's I see that a few, especially with some of the some smaller or developing CS organizations, where they're more hesitant to take that step or to move in that direction, and they see it as potentially something that can take them off track because they don't have a CS related AI strategy and approach.
Yep, and the trainings are expensive. Like something that leaders need to understand is training is expensive. It does not give the results ASAP kind of a thing. It's a long-term short game. And it has to be continuous. It has to be more emphasized, and it has to be result driven too. So I was talking to one of the person in working the small mid-sized companies, and they were like, "What if I train the person and invest this much time and they leave?" I was like, what if they stay? I mean, that's a cost
Yeah.
we're gonna
Age-old
bear for
problem.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
By not training them,
Exactly.
they're more likely gonna leave, right? This is called an investment. It's also how you frame it. By making an investment in your career, right? So if they feel like you have an ongoing investment, that you have an ongoing L&D plan to help them grow, they're going to stick around.
That's an evergreen question. I first heard that in 1996.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. So kind of continuing on this topic of implementation, how are you balancing the need for structured training with the reality of learning in the flow of work? All right, what's your approach to making learning continuous rather than episodic?
Well, I think it's a little bit of that, what I mentioned before, the balance of like having an aware presence of this is what we're utilizing AI and how we're taking AI into the market with our CSMs for our customers, and then still getting that live coaching, that workshopping, that what we just mentioned here was, those scenarios, those role playing, that sparring, like taking that live element into it and making it feel like it's not so much a transaction, which it can feel like with AI. It's like I put my cash in, the transaction was made, I got my result out, and keeping that back into tying it to the relationship building, tying it to developing a success plan for your customer. Like those things and actioning them is where you can kind of let the rubber hit the road. But I think that there's probably a few other ways to think about it, but that's one of the things that always comes to my mind.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a place, Andrew, you'll be happy to hear this. There'll always be a place for like structured training. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. I think there's lots of value to it, to have that as an existing kind of platform made available to people because it baselines everybody, right? So everyone kind of is trained on the same stuff. You know, we call it fundamentals or some advanced training, that's fine. But I think to Jeff's point about making things available live, that's very critical today. And I think of like in-app training. We have in-app training for customers. Why wouldn't you have in-app training for your CSMs? You just have to invest the time and put the effort into it. And I think it's possible. We'd already talked about, harvesting calls, and that's kind of live. It's a little asynchronous, but it's more immediate than an existing learning platform and that sort of stuff. So, and also Slack, Slack training. What I mean by that is like peer-to-peer community training.
Well, I think this element of training was always something that was very important to us from the start, which is why we rolled out with our courses these management implementation guides. We're now calling them facilitator guides, so that either a senior CSM or a leader can have they facilitate conversations, right? So hey, because the episodic training is fine, the structured training is fine, but there's this leap you need to take between, like you said, the foundational stuff, like what we teach, and how do I apply it in our world? There needs to be somebody there to help connect the dots, whether that's a senior CSM that you have more junior person that they're paired up with, kind of a mentor mentee role, or it's a leader of a team that's sitting down with the team and saying, okay, you went through this piece of training, and this is one of our best practices. Sit down, you went through this course as a group. Now let's connect the dots between what that course means in our world. Mm-hmm. So you've got to have that. You've got to kind of, once again, learning in the flow of work. How do we now incorporate what we learned into what makes us unique as an organization? Yeah. Looking at outcomes. Right. So we get all these trainings, we're doing all this stuff. When you look at outcomes, how have you, if anything, either rolled out or modified your metrics for measuring training effectiveness? Right. Are traditional metrics like completion rates and satisfaction scores still relevant in today's environment, or is it more about the downstream effects? So, for example, if you have a training that's focused on empathy, do you measure customer sat to determine, hey, are we being more empathetic? Are we being more customer centric?
I love that question, Andrew, because I'll give a little bit of a high level understanding. What I have here is that where I think that the continuous learning is more integrated these days into everyday work. I still believe that the traditional metrics like completion rates that you talked about, the satisfaction scores, the KPIs are important, but it needs to be worked on. Like, for example, knowledge retention. I think that with today's tech stacks, there has to be a continuous flow where we can do on-the-run checks like the pop-up quizzes or the real-time knowledge checks that we just talked about. Also, we can measure the improvements. For example, the KPIs that we talk about, like customer satisfaction, problems resolution, and all those words out there. There has to be kind of a result-driven where we can track those renewals, where we can track those upsells. And also when it comes to the health score, which is like the NPS, the number one criteria, what are we doing to impact those real customers, real life trainings of the customers' outcomes out there? So my take here would be that we are not getting away from the traditional values that a CSM has, but we need to have a modern touch attached to it.
Yeah, that's like the baseline. That's the foundation. I mean, and because then our favorite phrase is like the leading indicator and the lagging indicator, right?
Yep.
The leading indicator is, hey, are they doing this? Are they taking these courses? Are they doing the lessons? Are they applying it? And how is that showing up in the results? And you need to be able to share that and to be able to exemplify that, especially if you're talking about showing the value of a customer success organization and its impact on the revenue in the business.
Yeah.
You use leading and lagging indicators. That's near and dear, man. That's near and dear. That's true. It's it. We got to look at the leading and the lagging.
Yep.
I like the way these answers are going because I think it's accurate reflection of the changing times in customer success. This thrust to tie the effort of customer success to revenue needs to get stronger and stronger. It's not just about having a conversation with senior executives and trying to persuade them. It's not just showing metrics to CFOs. It's actually putting in place mechanisms to make that connection. And so I agree, we will still have those, I'll call them soft metrics, NPS and CSAT and time to value, which are a little imprecise sometimes and open to interpretation. But if you have those in place and then you have things like what percentage of the outcomes the customers desired, are they achieved in a certain amount of time and that sort of stuff. And, and any sort of revenue growth over. So this is an exercise over time. I think if you're going to measure people, you have to have a time frame in mind. And the training you're taking, we expect to see results over 3 or 4 quarters. And then we'll see, that you're successful in your job, but also whether this training that we're putting you through is making a difference. And so I think I always go back to executives that you need to have ready the conversation that you need to tell them that they need to be patient with these new mechanisms because it does take time to bear some fruit.
But you also need to, and once again, though, you need to come prepared with an idea of how you're going to measure that ROI, and that's and being in this business, it's a struggle.
Yeah,
right, because there's a difference between causation and correlation. Right. I can say, and I've had leaders come up to me and say, hey, we put my people through your training and we saw a 5% increase in retention. And then they'll caveat that with, well, I can't tie that 100% to your training program. We believe it had an impact. And so that's the challenge, because we can't 100% for sure say, hey, you're going to get a 5% increase in retention. But what we can say, and with a lot of confidence, is if your people understand how to handle your customers better, how to communicate with them, how to create relationships, the likely lagging indicator is that you're going to see retention increase. You're going to see customer sat increase. That's just, it's not a direct tie. It's more of an inference.
Yeah. I mean, that's that question also of, did we get lucky or did we learn?
Right.
And it is very hard to tell, but at the same time, if you are able to pulse in on the exact levers that are getting your customers to either renew or grow, and you can look at the actions that your CSMs that you're skilling them towards, then you could create that match. And then, like you said, that causation, if you have that, because being lucky happens to all of us in this business. Every once in a while, we come upon a renewal, we come upon some upsell, we come upon new activated seats, and we're like, ooh, that happened. Don't know how, but great. But when we learn, we know how to create those moments. And that's where we have to kind of anchor.
Yeah, years ago, I was in sales organization as a solutions consultant, and it drove me crazy working with some sales account executives who were, very mediocre. And yet they would still hit their number because occasionally because of luck. It was just pure luck, circumstances, timing of the customer, all that stuff.
Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every once in a while, right?
Exactly.
I remember a conversation, though. The other thing that I think that good L&D plans and training contribute to is confidence.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a former global head of customer success with a company with a name similar to DM Share, but starts with a V. And he was telling the story about a newly hired customer success manager who he was skeptical of actually being able to do well in the role. They went through our training, and he said the confidence that this individual exhibited once they got through the training and understood what their role was and understood, what needed to be done in order to help their customers derive value led to, within 9 months of this person's hiring, the largest renewal closed in their region that they had ever seen. And he, once again, caveated it, but said, I attribute a lot of that success with this individual to the training that they went through, because it built their confidence. And so training isn't just about teaching them a skill, but it's about making them feel more confident about their role.
Yeah, that's good.
I want to live in a live moment here, because you, Peter, you talked about the AEs accidentally, walking into these upsells or these contracts. There's another worse version of that I've seen, which is when you don't have CSMs actually responsible for a dollar figure, or even if you do have them responsible for a dollar figure, but the AE gets the deal when a CSM is intentionally doing that work, and they actually are the reason that sells, and the AE is getting off the back of the CSM. It's so tough to explain to a CSM why they shouldn't be an AE.
Oh yeah, 100% been there. Yeah. But our job is to create the environment for a renewal or an expansion to occur.
That's right.
And, but I think you can't. I think it's imperative as customer success leaders that we can't discount and we need to highlight the value that the customer success team put into that expansion, that renewal actually occurring. All right, last question before we start taking some questions from the audience. And folks, we only got 3 questions here, so if you got more questions, please jump in. Let's look ahead. What skills do you believe will become critical for CS teams in the next 2 to 3 years that might not even be on most training programs' radar today?
Oh, I love that question, Andrew. And we were just creating our learning path and the cost for the fiscal year. And I mean, though it's a repetitive, but the AI and data interpretation always remains as like the number 1 top priority kind of a thing. And then I think we did talk about the financial aspects. So the revenue intelligence and the strategic growth account kind of a conversations and the trainings probably would be number 2 for my end. But also these days, because we are seeing a lot of changes, we are seeing a lot of relationship building. So change management and resilience building would be probably my number 3. And you have a great course on the change management, which I really like. So if people want to take a look, please go ahead and do that.
By the way, they are not paid for these endorsements. We do not plan this ahead of time. These are all, I'm not gonna say I don't appreciate the plug. So 100%. It's great to hear. But we actually that's on our product roadmap. We're going to be releasing some stuff around business acumen, value selling, and prompt engineering, because we realize that AI is going to be playing an outsized role in these jobs moving forward. Peter, Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, something that it's been going on a while. And now it seems to be on a bit of a back burner because of generative AI has taken over all the oxygen in the room, and is a good thing in one regard. But just AI in general, it's been around for decades. But when I was at Oracle, the engineers who created the support systems and stuff were doing a great job of incorporating artificial intelligence into pattern recognition and trying to improve the processes of support. And when I was there as a strategist, we were trying to work closely with them to understand how customer success could be better intertwined with that effort. And I think that's going to come back to the forefront again. So let's call it predictive problem solving. Customer success, I think individuals and professionals should somehow become more aware of artificial intelligence in their companies. And maybe there's opportunities for customer success to kind of float up ideas of what they're seeing in the customer base and the customer usage and all that kind of stuff that would help improve company efficiencies, and that sort of thing. So I'm not being very precise, but I feel like that's something that we should probably be seeing more of soon, I think.
Yeah. So like predictive problem solving, I have a phrase that I've said to CSMs that I actually learned from a good AE in the past, which was I never wanted my CSMs coming in and saying the words, "How can I help?" to my customers.
Yeah.
And it puts the onus on the other person. Like, even if you say that to a friend, like, how can I help? They're like, oh, not only do I need help, I've got to tell you how I need help. But I think that it is all those things that both Shivi and Peter mentioned. But I think they're just not prescriptively emphasized or actioned by CSMs. There was an HBR article that came out about a year ago called "What Today's Rainmakers Do Differently," and they talk about the activator profile, which is someone who goes into customer conversations with the intent to educate them and do it clearly. And they do it in a way that relates to what they're offering. They proactively engage their customers around ways they can work together. And this activator profile is a boundary spanner. Like, they're a person who is really good at connecting people and who have activated their plans and find ways to socialize that across the people who are either underinformed or uninformed about their product offerings. And, I think that it's critical now, but I think that in the next 2 to 3 years, the CSM's ability to be part of that, the growth strategy for the go-to-market team, will be a difference maker if they know how to apply the tools that they have at their disposal and adapt the skills that they can work on from their own perspective and really own that activator profile.
I love that. That's really good.
Yeah, I like that.
Very impressive, Jeff.
Being an activator. I'm writing that down.
Yeah,
Man,
that
that's my
article, I
list.
love that article. I think it was mainly about consulting, but I read it with the CSM's lens because what are we but consultants?
Yeah,
and
we're
so
consultants.
it was just such an eye opener in how they framed it.
No, love that.
You should have just said you wrote it. And
Right.
All right, let's take some questions. Let's see. And folks, once again, we're gonna answer these questions based on most upvotes. So if you see a question on this list that you really want to see answered, use that thumbs up button. So our first question comes from Jason. Jason asks, "Hello, I'm curious how you handle trying to bring in the use of AI if you have senior leadership that's very hesitant to utilize it." And Peter, it looks like you want to jump in on this right out of the gate. So Peter, what have you got to say to Jason?
And just to correct you, there was a question above that Shivi asked, suggested she wants to answer, but I'll take this one first.
Well, no, we're going based off of most upvotes first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So just with regard to that question, I think it's like any other thing in the business world now. Let's call it the democratization of power. And what I mean by that is that we shouldn't expect senior executives to have complete control over everything in the company, meaning all decision making. I think modern executive thinking is that they invite collaboration, they invite ideas to come percolating up, and let's talk about a lot of different things. And so the way I see that is if senior leadership is hesitant to adopt something modern like artificial intelligence, I mean, they're really doing a disservice to the company, first of all. But secondly, you should have the capability to craft a message about what it could mean for not just you as an individual, but for you, for the team you're on, the organization you're in. What would be the business impact of experimenting? Don't say put it into place, but just say experimenting with the technology and what your expectations would be for any sort of potential productivity improvements, even margin effect, and that sort of thing. And I think that would be essentially you're trying to develop a persuasive argument to push forward an initiative you think would be really meaningful. And I think you should have the ability in your role to kind of craft that sort of message and then borrow information from outside the company. There's lots of community people talking about AI all the time. You should be able to kind of find material to support your point of view.
Jeff, Shivi, anything to add?
No, I think that positioning is so spot on. If you go in and you're saying, hey, we're going to use AI and this is what it's going to do and the impact, let them see it for themselves. It's such a great, because there's so many hesitations around, what does it have access to? What information is it going to pull out? Where's it learning from? You kind of have to, it's actually in everyone's favor to slow walk into that category.
100%, but always best. And I used to do this with my teams as well, where we wanted to roll something out. This is well before AI was even a freaking wild dream to somebody. Well, it was a wild dream to a few people, but outside of nobody knew about it. But we would do these skunkworks projects instead of going and saying, "Hey, I want to do this." We do a little skunkworks project and say, "Hey, we tried this, and here's what we got out of it."
Yeah.
Right. You just want to make sure, especially with AI, because there are these large language models that are public. You need to make sure that when you're playing with that, when you're trying stuff, that you're not trying stuff that would be exposing potentially confidential information from your customer or from your company.
Yeah.
Right. When you're doing that. But always better, instead of saying, "Hey, I want to do this," is, "Hey, I tried this and here's an output. Isn't this interesting? Isn't this intriguing?" Right. You want to come with some evidence. You want to come with data if you want to get somebody on board. Awesome. All right. Thank you for that question, Jason. Our next question comes from Michael. Michael, once again, thank you for joining us. Michael is a permanent fixture here in these webinars. We have a seat with his name on it. Each one of these. Michael asks is a great question. Michael asks, do any of you have concerns around AI becoming an easy button tool instead of CS individuals actively learning and remembering strategy? Jeff, you wanted to jump in on this one first.
I'm actually I'm actually in the works of writing a LinkedIn post about this. Christy Faltroso and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. I'll bring it full circle here, Andrew. It is hard to do weight loss, but any of us can be awesome at weight gain. Right? It's easy to become lazy. And customer success tools have undoubtedly revolutionized the way that CSMs operate. They provide valuable insights and data to enhance customer relationships. But they inadvertently can diminish the core qualities that make CSMs truly effective: curiosity, drive, accountability, proactivity. And while the tools can streamline the process, it's really important for CSMs to maintain their approach to understanding the customer's needs, driving initiatives forward, taking ownership of outcomes. And it's, again, that balance between leveraging the technology and using those human-centric skills. And it's you almost have to just continue to coach them towards that, because, again, it is really easy to just let it go. And just like, you know what, this will do it for me. I don't have to do anything anymore because I've just pressed the button and the output's there. And you're going to have CSMs who are going to just fall into that trap, but you can coach them out of it.
Yeah.
I love that. But I mean, we always talk about this in the organization here, is that easy button is always a real fix. But is it really a fix, or is it a next step towards getting into the problems? Because AI, what I think, is an enhancement. It's not a replacement. And we need to understand whatever Jeff talked about, the human touch, the CSM's core values out here, like EQ, IQ. I was speaking with someone and they taught me about AQ. I think, Andrew, we spoke about the AQ in the last seminar about it, that the AI is there when you give them the data, but how predictive the AI can be. So let's talk about the adversity quotient here, that the CSMs can actually understand the client when talking to the client, understanding from where the client wants to be, what the goals are be, and how much can AI can actually predict that. So just understanding that the balance between the automation and the personal connection is my take out here.
I used to dream of having an easy button when I was a CSM. And I even proposed it to the product team at the time.
I had an easy button somewhere.
But I knew realistically it wouldn't make a ton of sense. It was for my advantage and not so much for the customer's advantage. And I always remind myself the customer's my touchstone, and if it's in their interest, then it might be worth pursuing. And I'm not sure an easy button is the best thing to have for a CSM, to the points made by Shivi and Jeff.
But once again, from what Jeff said, you don't. Having them fall into this easy button mode is, or preventing them from falling into this easy button mode is the responsibility of leadership.
Yep.
I mean, I've had this conversation with my daughter who has, been hesitant to use AI in her studies. And I'm like, honey, listen, if you're doing it right, you're not having it generate your paper for you. But if you have a question or you want to streamline something, or if you want to come up with a better explanation, there's nothing wrong with you, interacting with an AI to give you some ideas, but it shouldn't replace you learning about the concept.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all about how you use it.
Yeah, I say to people, it's a collaborator, it's a conversation partner, and that sort of.
Exactly. It's like having, I think of it as like having somebody sitting next to me that I'm able to bounce ideas off of.
Mm-hmm.
It's not replacing the work that I do, and it's making me more efficient. Maybe it's not taking 40 to 60 hours for every 1 hour of course that we're which is the average. It's usually 40, 60 hours of effort to develop 1 hour of online course. So maybe it's taking me closer to 30 to 40 hours. So it's making me more efficient, but it's not replacing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Roxy has it spot on. When I was a CSM, I was just like begging my manager at the time, can I get an assistant? Because back then this just wasn't an option. But now everybody can have an assistant.
That's funny.
Exactly. Awesome. Michael, thank you for that question. As usual, great to see you again. Jeff, can you hit the done button? We're going to move to our next question here. Nakul, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Nakul. Nakul, hi, I'm exploring to pivot to CSM role, having worked under a CSM for a brief stint of 6 months during the early stages of my career at Accenture. However, as we have AI in discussion and given my situation to explore more options to pivot, what are your tips and guidelines to move towards this? AI is important, and I'm so looking forward to incorporating it in my career journey. And it looks like Shivi, you wanted to jump in on this.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll take a couple of minutes to answer this because I guess like a lot of people want to transition into CSM, and a lot of us do get these kind of questions here. So I'm going to answer it in a couple of ways here. One, Nicole, thank you for that question. It's great that you already have a tech background, which is great that you are transitioning into AI and you want to get into the CSM world. I'll give you a little bit of my story. I don't come from the tech background. I come from the HR background. And then I transitioned into the CSM world out here. And then I learned the tech stacks. So I would say there are a couple of things that you need to do. One, leverage your past CSM exposure. Take care of your transferable skills. You have a great profile out there. Build your skills out there. Have a great LinkedIn profile out there. Encourage what you have done when it comes to the account management, communication. Seek out the mentorship out there and strengthen your network. It's a saying that the 70% of the jobs are from the hidden job markets, and you need to network to find those opportunities. So take care of those networking opportunities out there. And then what you're asking about the customer success knowledge, that is great. Like learn the fundamentals, learn how to talk like a CSM, learn how to use those words like customer lifetime value, net promoter scores, because those would be important when you go for the interviews. You would be using those words like what is your book of business, what is the renewal rates, what is the churn that you have prevented, and all those metrics. So get yourself familiarized with all those knowledge. And I would encourage you to taking some course and the certifications to help you. People understand that you are serious transitioning into the CSM world and you have a knowledge and you are building through it. And then when it comes to the AI, yes, focus on AI for customer success. Focus on some automated reporting, focus on some data, focus on some predictive analytics and the customer journey and the mapping out there. And I think with all that said, what I think is really important is your personal brand, as how you portray, as how you focus out there when you are going and you're meeting people and you are communicating with them. So make sure that you are having your personal brand out there. Like Jeff gave you a couple of the tools that he's doing a write-up. He's doing, some LinkedIn post out there. Go and do that. Peter did talk about the consulting experiences. If you have those consulting experience, go and leverage those experiences out there, because those would be some important tools for you to get into the CSM world. Sorry, I was talking fast.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Jeff, Peter, you got anything to add?
That was pretty comprehensive. I don't
that was
really
good.
have a lot more to add to that. I think it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Shivi, once you hit that done button, and we got one more question. This is it's a rarity. We usually don't have enough time to answer all the questions, but we'll answer this last one and we'll move on. Final question comes, of course, from anonymous attendee who shows up at every one of these things. We always
My
got to
favorite
have
person.
two questions. How much product knowledge do you think CSMs should have? As an example, on par with an SE, how would you recommend a CSM handle product knowledge when they are responsible for supporting several products built into a single platform? Jeff, looks like you want to jump in on this.
Yeah, I have everybody's favorite answer for this, and it's perfect for the anonymous attendee.
Yes.
The answer is, it depends.
Depends. Exactly.
But honestly, when I think of the profile of a CSM, there are things that we tentpole around, like the skills and characteristics that they're supposed to have, and we mentioned some of them here today. Business acumen, product and platform knowledge, articulating vision, outcome realization, strategic thinking, escalation management, building relationships. Those things are important. And if as you go through your career as a CSM, you get more indexed towards those different skills at a higher level, depending on the product that you're managing, depending on the type of customers that you're managing, and depending on how skilled or where you put your emphasis and your calories to create yourself as a better CSM. So it depends, because you can have someone who, if the scale for those things is 1 to 5, they could be a 5 in business acumen and a 3 at articulating vision and a 4 at strategic thinking, and they'd have to lean on somebody who has the product and platform knowledge, because that's a 1 or a 2. Or you can have somebody who just happens to be one of those technically minded CSMs, and they are a 5 at the product and platform knowledge, and then they still struggle with their strategic thinking or with their business acumen. So, I think that the real it depends answer, if I want to house that into a single place, it's for the team to be on line with each other, and for the team to understand where those skills index, and for them to approach with a customer oriented mind state of, this is what we want to get with our customer, and this is the way that our team is going to approach it. If it's an AE, an SE, a CSM, a consulting person, support, if you've got a team on a customer, then you have to be first self-aware about what you bring to the table. You have to have the transparency and relationship with your partners for them to tell you about what they bring to the table, and game it up, spar it out, get into the conversation of what we are going to present to the customer, who's going to handle what. And ensure it's a little bit of an extra lift, but at the same time, that's the chance for CSMs to become more technical by having that conversation very frankly with their SE, that I don't have this skill. If you need me to pick it up, I need you to teach me. So I think that it really does depend because of all those things, but that would be my kind of lens on it.
Yeah, and I would just add to all that, Jeff, that it it kind of also depends on what the customer's expectations are. I mean, if friction is a big issue in customer engagement with your customer community, you want to do what you can to minimize that as much as possible, which would logically put pressure on the CSM to learn more about the product so they can answer questions and provide guidance more immediately than seeking help. But I agree with you 100%. It all depends. And it's really challenging for CSMs to become so equipped with product knowledge, especially if it's a broad portfolio, to add that sort of value to the customer engagement. I think you can diffuse that by just advising the client at the outset, I'm not a product expert, just be honest and say, what I am good at is orchestrating product knowledge towards you, ideally when you need it, or even before that. And that's what I commit to doing for you. And I think that's typically how you build a good, solid relationship going forward. I think customers are reasonable people. They don't expect you to be an expert on all this stuff. I mean, that would be like a dream come true for them, but they don't expect it.
You just need to know where to get where to get the answers. I was the, when I was running the Western region consulting business for Business Objects, I built one of the largest regions by revenue in the organization from one of the most anemic. And it wasn't because I was an expert in Business Objects. As a matter of fact, I never installed the product. I never even built a freaking report. I didn't even run my own report. But what I did have is I had a guy, right? And I knew enough to be dangerous to have conversations. I knew what the capabilities were of the product, but when it came down to the technical details, I had a guy. I would
press the easy button.
Jay, he was my easy button. And there was nothing easy. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't really easy dealing with Jay either. Jay was one of those guys where we would have to apologize for how blunt he was. I more than one occasion, I'd have to talk to him after we'd walk out of a meeting. I'm like, dude, you can't call the customer stupid. Okay. They love you and you got away with it because you know so much, but you essentially called them stupid, but having my easy button guy, having my Jay was critical to my success. And that, I did not build that organization up because I knew so much about the product. I was a good relationship guy and I knew where to get the right answer, whether it was Jay or somebody else.
Yeah.
All right. Our final question is, I feel like it's directed at me. I definitely have the answer.
I feel like it's a perfect question for you.
That's why I wanted to answer it.
Because you've all participated in our training program. So examples of actual company learning and training portals that support CSMs. Would scripts be recommended to have in various stages of customer adoption engagements, gamification, video tutorials that work well for company CSM training, our CS leads or other leaders, the training program liaison. We actually offer that very thing. We are a customer success training program provider. We have our own platform. We offer online learning. It is self-paced. We offer lots of different pieces that help drive those learning stuff that you all actually haven't seen yet. We're getting ready to release things like scenario-based, putting it into practices, challenge questions where you can apply what you've learned to your personal world. And yes, a best practice is having the leader act as a liaison to help connect the dots between what your customer success managers are learning and how to apply it in your world, because there's no way that any training provider can cover all the different elements of what you do that's unique to your world in a training program. So we focus on the fundamentals and then offer up additional tools to help you connect the dots and help your leaders connect the dots. So yes, those things are available. We are the number one provider of that. And I would encourage you to take a look at what we have to offer because we can do what you're asking for. And it looks like, Peter, you wanted to weigh in on this as well.
Well, I would just say, to use a platform like Success Coaching, it's got a fantastic reputation, many years in the industry, and they keep it alive with refreshing it all the time. So I always tell people to use it. And that's coming from someone who tried to build this at Oracle without a lot of outside assistance. And it's very challenging. We did put in some, not gamification, but reward systems for sure. Product certifications. We did some video stuff. It's a lot of heavy lifting. If you can offload that to a third party, by all means, I just highly recommend that.
And then what you do is your internal L&D teams spend their effort on the connective tissue,
coaching,
what we teach and what makes you unique.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a nice niche that we have found in everything from small startups to large companies like IBM and Broadcom and HP and Red Hat and NetApp and all those folks. So we're at the end of our time that we've got for today. I think it was a great conversation, but it's not what I think. It's what all of you think. So please let us know by posting your feedback on LinkedIn and tagging either myself, our guests, or Success Coaching or Success Hacker. I want to thank our guests for spending the time with us today. Thank you. Thank you so much for the ideas, the thoughts, the insights, the best practices that you share. One final note, great CS leaders know they don't have all the answers, but they know where to get them. That's why we created the CS Leadership Roundtable, to harness the knowledge and experience of the community to help improve everyone. Once again, we hope to see you next month on December 4th. Our final CS Leadership Roundtable for the year, when we'll discuss something really important, supporting employee well-being and mental health. Until then, make sure to make space for yourself and your mindset every single day. Have a great rest of your week and month and an amazing Thanksgiving holiday for those that celebrate. And we'll see you next time.